Hello, hello, hello.
Hi,
How are you today, Danielle?
I'm doing really well, Heather. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Danielle Donato. She is the owner of Stage Studio LLC. Um, oh, it's Friday. It does not feel like a Friday, that's for sure.
Yes, I've been confusing my days this whole week.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah.
love all of the plants that you have behind you there. It looks like a lot,
Thank
but
you.
yeah.
Yes. We have plans. So I'm actually home. I'm not in the studio. I'm at our home.
Okay.
But we do have a tremendous amount of plants, both in the studio and at home. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's nice. I used to have plants, but then I would forget to water them and
Yeah, it is just an extra to do, even though I try not to look at it that way, but there are times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I think it's been a little too long. They need some loving. Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Danielle, I'm excited to have you here today. Um, Now, one of the reasons I started this Erie Wellness Connect podcast was to really reunite our wellness community, all of the entrepreneurs here in Erie, who I feel we all kind of got scattered during the pandemic. And I don't So it's funny how Erie works a little bit. I've heard your name before, but I don't know you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited to meet. So this will be a new aspect of all of this is meeting new people and further connecting, those connections here in Erie as well. So Danielle, let's start off with, I would just love to learn more about you. Are you even from Erie? Tell us a little bit about you, Danielle.
Yeah, so I'm from Tynesta. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a very, very tiny town. I
Yes.
grew up there, and my family is actually from Italy. So my mom, my aunts, uncles, everyone, they were born over in Italy. I always wondered why Tynesta out
Yeah,
of all of, the states. First it was Franklin, Pennsylvania, and then they moved to Tynesta. And, now when I go home, I appreciate it much more than I ever did. Very secluded, very woodsy, right on the Allegheny. It's a beautiful location. So I had graduated in June of 2007, and within 2 weeks, I was living in Erie. So I had moved to Erie to go to cosmetology school.
oh,
Yes. So I'm a hairstylist. I've been a hairstylist for 14 years. And
okay.
funny enough, so I believe, and I don't know if this is still your location. So I opened up a hair studio across from your studio at the time, or maybe still is. It used to be in the point four, and I was the little, there was like a patio off of point four. It's now the State Farm Agency on West 8th Street.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was a little, just a one-man shop hairstylist, or my studio was there.
Oh,
Yeah, so I had heard of your studio and your office
yeah.
just through passing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was working with Jennifer Rice at the time, so she was doing hair out of that little place
Oh,
too. So me
okay.
and her were in together. She was a longtime friend of mine. She was using a room. I was just using a room. What a small world! Look at
It
that.
is a small world. Yeah, so that was, that had crossed my mind. Through these last couple of weeks of just the connection. And then yeah, so being a hairstylist, I have three children, so I'm a mom of three.
Nice.
And yeah, so it was me and my oldest son. He's now 14. And yeah, we lived in Erie and traveled back and forth to my hometown. Now, what led me to my yoga journey, so it was through the loss, a tremendous loss in my life. It was my grandmother, my nonna. Um, and while I was grieving, a friend of mine had mentioned, have you tried yoga that may help support you, through everything that you're experiencing right now? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And immediately I gravitated towards it. And initially it was the asana practice, so the physical movement that really I focused on for the first like couple of years. And feeling that connection and that intentional movement through my body is what connected me to yoga, which has, evolved. And then in 2018, I was doing hair for a client of mine who her husband owned a local studio here, and he offers teacher trainings. And it was within, it was so interesting how it all worked, because at the time I was living in Meadville but still doing hair in Erie,
Oh,
and
okay.
I had a 2-year-old. My middle son was about 2 at the time, um, and I was attending a yoga studio down in Meadville, and the connection and the community that they created, it just it was like nothing I had ever experienced. And when my client had mentioned this teacher training, the universe just conspired. And
Right.
within like a month or so, and I had no idea, like payment wise, how I was going to do all of this. And I had spoken with the owner of the yoga studio, and he was like, I am so impressed with the way that you've manifested all of this. And it worked.
Mhm.
And that's been my journey ever since, like through all of my trainings, wondering how I'm going to do this. And does it make sense for me to dive into another training right now? And it's all worked. Same with the
So,
studio.
so that was 2017. So it's been about 6 years you've been kind of on this, well, on the teacher portion of it, right?
So it was 2018, 2019. So
Okay.
I'm still on the earlier side. And then COVID had happened. So
Right.
I had finished my teacher training program that was 10 months long. And I had started teaching, and within 7 months or so, I can't remember, maybe not even, COVID had happened. Yep,
Shut you down.
absolutely. Hmm.
Right. Right.
So I had ventured into the world of online, and offering services there. And then I really just turned that into more introspection and did my own self-study, and I focused on my own practice. Um, so the teachings, or my offerings, had kind of been on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I started my 500 hour. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So, where you're at right now. So, what led you to Sage Studio? You just recently opened, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So it's been
Physical
since
location.
May.
Okay.
um, so I will say, and with, mentioning my hair studio earlier on, I gravitate towards doing my own thing. It's just something that comes very natural. And this actually started in December.
Hmm.
Not this particular space, but a friend had mentioned to me, there's a really cool downtown location. It's smaller, but that would be a cool spot to open up, maybe just more of a private studio. I was like, oh, that's great. So I reached out, loved it. I could see the potential. I'm 100% a visionary. Like, you could give me a cardboard box and I'll figure it out. Like,
Nice.
that's how I'm a visual person. And if it feels right to me, I'll make it work. So it was small, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. So my wheels started turning. And um, the week that I was supposed to sign the lease, everything fell through. And I'm like, okay, now is not the time. Now is not the time. And I had the name Studio Sage already chosen.
Hmm.
And the reason why that came about is when I first started a mindfulness practice or holistic practices, really gravitating more towards the wellness and cleansing of energy, and all of the things that fall under that immense umbrella, sage is what started it for me. So I used to burn sage,
Okay.
and that's where sage is for me. And to me, in my own experience, when I'm intentionally burning this medicine, I am moving towards a space of clarity,
Hmm.
moving towards a space of balance and harmony. And it is that space between what was and what will be. And
Nice.
it's the intention behind that that you're putting into that.
I
Um,
love it. I love it. I love it.
yeah, and I try not to say, cleansing negative energy just because I'm not gonna, throw that on for the studio anyways, like, oh, you're negative energy, you're coming in here to cleanse yourself. So it's not anything like that, but it is more like just that intentional movement towards clarity.
Right. Right.
So
I
yeah.
feel like it's just like you said, that change of energy, that transformation,
Yeah.
that space in between that we forget
Mhm.
about, right? We want to
Yeah.
be here and here,
Yeah.
but to get or be or move from, there's got to be here.
Yeah.
And that's where you're at, right?
Yep. That
And you
space
off,
in between.
yep,
Mhm.
and offering a calm presence of allowing people to be in that transformation
Mhm.
because that's not always comfortable either, right?
Not even in the slightest.
Right.
Yes.
So to offer
Yeah.
space to people to say, hey, while you're in this growth or while you're in this
Mhm.
movement, we will hold space for you. I
Yeah.
love it.
Absolutely. And, it is, and if you notice on, the logo, it's yoga, wellness, movements, workshops. So, through all of that, yes, it is a yoga studio, and that is where it speaks to for me. But I also love to incorporate other styles of movement. So, in the future, I plan or I hope to have other offerings outside of just yoga classes, because that may not speak to some people. And I believe movement in general helps so much to just kind of tap in without maybe even intentionally doing it, and
You
feel
know,
that sense of release.
so let me ask you, you had mentioned earlier that you yourself had discovered yoga
Mhm.
at a time where you were in a transformational phase. And really there was a lot of grief going on there, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So and I know through my own practice of just working with bodies and everything that those feelings need to move physically,
Mhm.
right? We think of it as this ethereal, just a theory or a feeling, like it doesn't have this concrete thing, but the concrete feeling is you, is your body, is your
Mhm.
physical, you know. So moving those emotions,
Yeah.
moving the body moves those emotions out of the body, or at least through it better, right? At least
Mhm.
the channel of it. So I think that's no matter what type of movement speaks to people, whether it be yoga or yoga dance or stretching or Pilates or whatever, however you need to get people to connect with that
Yeah.
sounds like is more your mission. Am
Mhm.
I on the right track
Y
there?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and, I'm a firm believer of meeting people where they are, and I
Mhm.
would never want to just not necessarily limit, but I wanna make sure that there's enough offerings that would speak to, not saying that there's gonna be, we're gonna go above and beyond, but,
Right.
enough to, switch it up a little bit and
Yeah.
have options.
I know you have Abby,
Yes.
doing some classes there. So are you actively
Yes.
looking for teachers to perhaps reach out to you, with what they're offering and see if they might be able to be a good fit for what you'd like
Mhm.
your vision to be?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm always open. I'm always open. And, in the beginning of all of this, and I am a 0 to 100 person. Like, I am definitely an extremist. If I'm going to go for it, I'm going to go for it. So, initially I had this whole like full class schedule idea in mind, and I had set the bar really high. And then when we kind of started to move into the space and be within the space, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is perfect right where we are.
Mhm.
We have enough classes to offer, but I'm not actively looking, but also I'm always open to
Perfect.
anyone that comes to. Absolutely. Yeah.
What other kind of offerings do you have then? Let's go to that.
Yeah. So there's, I mean, as of right now, the weekly classes are yoga. So we have a movement style, so more power yoga. That's Monday evenings. Tuesday, we have Abby with restorative, and then we have an evening unwind, which is a little bit more slow paced, but very beginner friendly. Wednesdays, we just started a morning class of building foundations to support and encourage a home practice, or to just offer some guidance if you've never been to a yoga class, and it can be very intimidating.
Mhm.
So just offering those foundational, poses, postures, and yeah, restorative mainly, power flow, and then a slow pace. And then we do offer events. So we do this Saturday we have qigong,
Nice.
and yeah, so then we also do warrior tai chi yoga, which is kind of similar, and it's all like moving meditation and through the power of music and sounds. We recently had a full moon event, and we have a new moon event coming up. We have a pelvic floor workshop coming up with a pelvic
Oh,
floor therapist, so
I will
lots of
put a
options.
little pin on that one. I would love a list of some of these workshops from
Yeah,
you, especially the pelvic floor, because I get so many
yes,
people in here who have issues, and it
yep,
can be a hard thing sometimes to approach with people. I would love to be able to share that with some of my clients. So definitely make sure we get
yeah.
that. Oh, I love this. I love
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. And we did have last month, we had a woman self-defense workshop scheduled. And we ended up rescheduling. The date has not been chosen yet, because it really just seemed like it was the busiest day of the summer. So many people wanted to be a part of it, but it was a very, very busy day. So we
Okay.
are going to reschedule that one. But yeah, and my future or my ideas for future classes, like I love the thought of a belly dancer class, or things along those lines. Just something different, switch it up. So
Oh, I love that. I love
yeah.
that. You had also mentioned something about the Ayurvedic health advisor. Is that you're going to
Yeah.
class for that now? What?
Yes,
Tell us
so
more
I'm
about that.
actively in training, and that is through Hale Pule. It's all online studies, and
Okay.
I've been in it. So I've been studying Ayurveda since my 200-hour teacher training. And, it really made sense to me because when I had mentioned earlier on that the asana is what spoke to me through yoga, and again, with me being full throttle, I used to go and do, the vinyasa style very fast. So when I had learned about Ayurveda, I learned that is why I never moved towards balance, because I'm already a very active person.
Mhm.
I call myself an airy fairy, and that relates to kind of an Ayurvedic term through the doshas, which I can touch base on if you'd like. But yeah, that's when I started incorporating restorative into my life, because it's that opposite that brings me balance, that grounds me, that brings that earth element
Right.
and kind of lowers me down and finds that space of evenness.
Yes.
um so yeah,
Okay.
so Ayurveda, it spoke with me, and I've went full throttle with it since.
Tell us about that because I have it's been coming up a lot lately, just in conversation with a lot of different people. So, and I don't fully understand what it is. Um,
Yeah, okay.
so is it more of a theory? Is it a practice? I know there's some oils involved. Is there food involved? What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. It's a health system, one of the world's oldest health systems. It's been around for about 5,000 years, and Ayur means life or knowledge, knowledge of life. Veda means knowledge, so the knowledge or the science of life. So it is practices every day that help us understand ourselves and to use the tools that we learn through Ayurveda and move towards a more harmonious life, living in harmony with nature. And it's Ayurveda is
It feels like a
so within,
concept, like
yeah,
a
that's what, yes.
philosophy, right?
It's a part of the Vedic philosophy, yes. So it's so hard because it's such an immense, just like
Mhm.
all of, the Vedic texts, and it's just, there's so much to it. But essentially, in Ayurveda, there are three vital energies, okay, that are composed of the five great elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas. So that's the ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And these three vital energies are composed with these elements, okay? And we all have this. So
Mhm.
the term is doshas. There's vata dosha, pitta dosha, and kapha dosha.
I have heard
So
those before. Yeah.
yes, yes. Okay, so within that, when I am practicing or I'm teaching a class or, in some sort of offering, most of the time it gets brought up because even through the seasons, in the time of days, those doshas can be elevated and we may feel that elevation but not really know exactly what it is, or more, lower energy. Um, so bringing in balance, or I'm sorry, bringing in opposites help us to move towards balance.
So knowing where you're at
Yes.
allows you to know how to, and if it's too much or something that you need
Yeah.
to, right, making you feel uncomfortable, then you can add whatever that knowledge is
Yeah.
to balance you
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
Gotcha. Oh,
Sorry. It's like I could go on and on and on with
yep.
Ayurveda, and I try to do bite-sized, digestible, bits of information because it's so much. But essentially, yes, we're all made up of the three doshas. Everybody has their own unique constitution. And when you know that constitution and also know your imbalances, you can bring in opposite qualities to move back towards your natural state.
Gotcha. I love
Yes,
it.
yes,
Okay. All right.
yeah,
I need some stuff like that in my life sometimes, man. Yeah.
yes.
It's hard enough, and I feel like yoga actually, or some of the mindfulness practices, sometimes the hardest thing is knowing just where you're at right now, right? So that you know how to get to where you need to be. So I feel like offering the mindfulness classes like yoga and stuff like that is, like you said, the starting point of it all. So
Mhm.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
Sage Studio, where you're located at. Tell us where you're located at.
Yeah, so and I'm not sure if my internet, I'm trying not to move too much. I am connected to Wi-Fi, but you're, I don't know if I'm breaking up, but I hear bits and pieces of you.
Okay.
So I apologize that if I'm uh, getting bits and pieces. But so
I
the
can hear
studio is
you.
okay, good. Okay,
Okay.
good. So the studio is located at 1909 Chestnut Street, and it's in a warehouse that's called The Shop. So it's an up and coming urban redevelopmental warehouse. And it is the coolest space. They actually just had an event there last night. And yeah, so once the first location had fallen through, at that point, I knew there's a bigger picture here. There's something more happening. And this particular space was the third space that I had looked at. And I knew immediately, like anything that I had envisioned, all the way down to each distressed brick was in that space. And
Perfect.
yeah, so since February, it's been moving. It's
Now,
been in the works.
that's up by the Copper Carriage and all of that.
Yes, yeah,
There's, isn't there I just did an art walk.
yes, an art gallery.
Yeah. What's that
Mhm.
place up there? There's something else. Oh, the paper place. Yes.
Oh, Grounded Print Shop. Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Ashley. Yes, Passatori. I hope that I I pronounced her name right. So Tori, yeah, so she's great, and
Okay.
yeah, that's another
Yeah.
amazing location. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that area up there. It's
Yeah.
really, really cool, really up and coming. A lot of people doing a lot of really cool stuff, just like you are, Danielle.
Yeah.
Do you have any inspirational stories that you'd like to tell us, or anything you'd like to share, maybe about a student or anything that's kind of standing out to you?
Yeah. So there was a moment in a class, and this was when I was at a studio prior to Studio Sage, and it was a class that this particular student had, been to regularly. And most of my classes, I begin with some form of breath training. So whether it's in crocodile, lying on our bellies in Makarasana, or using sandbags. So I guess I'll preface all of this by saying that, throughout this journey, through my own experiences and through offerings, I've learned that our breath can be such an abstract concept. So it's like so many times we hear the cues of like, focus on your breath, tune into your breath, and begin the manipulation of your breath, or through your nose and sealing your lips, all of these cues. But overall, that can be so abstract for people, So I bring awareness to that, and I'm very mindful around that. So I begin my classes with these techniques to help restore the rhythmic movement of our breath and our diaphragm. Because most of the time we're up. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I know sometimes I live in this headspace, right? So this particular student class, began as always. And there was one cue that I guess I mentioned for the first time, or not the first time, but it connected her for the first time. And after class, she had come up to me and she's like, I don't think I've ever felt a deep diaphragmatic breath until that moment. And you said that cue, even though we've done this over and over and over again. And she's like, and I instantly felt incredible and grounded, and and it was amazing, and I wanted so badly just to tell you that right in the middle of class, that was incredible, feeling the expansion of her belly on the inhalation, and then feeling as um going through everything else, and then on the exhalation, like even more grounded. And she said that it was probably one of the best experiences that she had had in a yoga class. And
That's
that alone,
yeah.
I was so thrilled. And that also brings me back to just the understanding and the mindfulness of the words that we choose, and the practices that there are times that I'm like, oh, people are probably so sick of doing this over and over and over again. But yet I still do it because I feel, it's so important, and it helps to bring that connection with our breath and our body. So that was really wonderful. That was, I think I was just so fulfilled in that moment and the days after hearing
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To be able to help somebody connect with something
Yeah.
that's been there all along.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to guide them to that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So that was really wonderful.
Tell us about what you have coming up for Sage. What's going on this year for you? Where do you envision Sage going?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, wow, that's
You're
been a
like, I
question
just
I
got
haven't really.
started. I have no
That's
idea.
no, and that is a question that is something I generally would ask myself, but I'm doing my best to not think so far and to really nurture. And I've been using the analogy of like getting the train moving, and just getting things going, and then having that momentum. But I mean, I'd love to continuously offer, weekend events of different offerings from all local practitioners, facilitators, and sharing the space and creating community. And that's probably, the seed within it all for me is the community that's being built. And it's like the most amazing feeling when I see people, like the retention and people coming back and having their routine, taking their shoes off, putting, them under the bench, or all that, coming in, getting to their spot, and then, you know,
And then making
Keeping
friends,
someone.
right? You see them starting to gather
Absolutely.
more
Yes.
and,
Yes.
yeah, it's again,
Yeah.
it's creating that community and
Hmm.
a safe space for people to come and
Yeah. And the
practice.
conversations that happen after a
Mhm.
class, I mean, we're there sometimes 15, 20, 30 minutes later, just still
Right.
talking. And
You have
it's,
you have some classes outside too, right? I've seen you
so
do that.
yeah, we just had our first courtyard yoga and coffee, which we'll plan on having more because we had wonderful feedback. Um, so integrating the outside through, the season that we're in because everybody wants to be outside. But yeah, I mean, as far as my vision, just kind of where we're at, but expanding, expanding
And
through our classes, through our offerings, and um, the people that come in, the community.
I love it. I love it. Danielle, it was super, super nice to finally meet you
Yes,
today, to connect with you, to be able to share you with my community and our
yes, thank
community
you.
and Erie community and all of that.
Yes,
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate it so much. And I
Yeah.
do want to say, so I'm actually on your email list, and I've been for quite some time. And I had seen empowering
Yes.
the
Empath-
can you
Empowering
say it again?
empaths.
Empowering empaths. Okay. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, I think I might be joining there. So you might be seeing me there because that sounds pretty phenomenal.
Awesome. Awesome. I hope
Yeah.
we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hang around. We're going to wrap up here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Danielle Donato, the founder of is it Studio Sage or Sage
Studio
Studio?
Sage. Yeah.
Studio
Studio Sage.
Sage.
Hmm.
All
Yes.
right. Erie, we're going to be seeing some wonderful things coming from her and her community. And we'll see you around. Have a wonderful Friday. It's beautiful out. Enjoy yourselves.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.